What's happening? Kyle Postlewaite, aka Malker, here at Big Kitty Games. Been a long time since I made a video. It's been, I think, right about 6 months since I streamed, and so we're actually going to get into that after this. I'm not streaming live right now. I'm just going to record this, largely for Patreon purposes, because thank you so much, patrons. That's such a big help. It's difficult to stress that verbally, but it really makes a big difference. And I've also got some tips and merchandise stuff that's gone through over the past 6 months I haven't been here, so I'll get more into that in the stream. Uh, give out thanks to everybody, but big thanks to everybody on Patreon helping out. And so, I consider it kind of my job to keep the patrons even more so than the players informed as to what is going on. And generally, I just post on Steam, and we talk about a lot of stuff in Discord. But I do want to get these videos out at least here once in a bit on development updates. So I'm sorry it's been so long since I did one of these, and we're way late into January here already of 2022, which is crazy. I was kind of putting this off for two reasons mostly. One was to make sure that I get sort of this new skills and combat math systems in and working at least partially, because that's just something I was really invested in December, January, and was able to get those out here a couple weeks ago. But the other thing was the talk about potential investment. And unfortunately, I don't have really a lot of new information to bring on that front. So, given that January is going to run out here pretty quick, I'm just going to go ahead and make the video anyway. I was hoping to bring more information in regards to what's going on there. Last I have heard is that things should be getting started in April. So, that would just be a big win for everybody. I'm continuing to work solo, but that's kind of always in the back of my head, that there's, I've got my list here in front of me of things I want to do for getting to 1.0. And some of those I'm kind of purposefully not doing just yet, because April's going to be here before you know it. And in the event that all gets going, there's some things that just we're going to be redoing in any case. So it would kind of not make good use of my time to go in and really start working on some of those, mostly building and some things that involve 3D models and stuff, So anyway, sorry I don't have more info on that yet. I will, of course, keep the community updated on that as new information comes in. But wanted to go into a few things that are going on right now. Actually, I haven't been working on new skills themselves too much. Well, I guess this week I did get a number of them in that weren't. I've mostly been working on combat math, though, and kind of tying the two systems together. And there's some different philosophies that I've always kind of carried with Big Kitty Games. One of them is that fun is number one. We're not trying to make Survive in the Woods realistic simulator. You don't have to have things be physically correct or anything like that. It just needs to be fun. And sometimes that means it needs to be silly. Sometimes that means it needs to be serious. There's lots of different ways to approach and achieve fun. But another couple of those things I've gotten written down here, and one of them is something I've realized over time, is that games don't get better just by constantly adding to them. And this is actually something I realized a long time ago with Minecraft, that Minecraft was a big inspiration for me And I think I've talked about this in a video. I talk about these videos in my head so much, I forget what I actually did talk about and didn't. This is like every night before bed, I'm making one of these movies in my brain. But Minecraft was a big inspiration for me starting out back in like 2016, before I even had, prototype material or anything like that. I was really interested in just the procedural infinite generation, and expanding on Minecraft. But, like if we were to say Minecraft 2, I don't think that's possible. And I'm pretty sure I've talked about this before, but Minecraft is Minecraft because it is what it is. If you add RPG elements into that, if you add, story mode like they did, it becomes something else. And you don't want to just keep tacking on new features. And that's something I've had a bit of a problem with in Solace Crafting is really, there's parts of the core material that would do better to be more refined than they are, in a sense that it probably would have been good for me to prioritize some of those things prior to some of the additional features that I've added since. And so my to-do list back in like 2020 had all kinds of stuff on it that has since been removed, or at least pushed down the to-do list beyond version 1.0. So we're not trying to just keep adding to the game and, oh, now it's also got RTS built into it. Oh, now it's also got, and that's not what makes a specific game better. And also, I think kind of another way to say that is that games that have an established working formula don't need to change that. And this is something that I've struggled with a lot lately, in the sense of the past like 6 months, because I changed the player stats system so much. And I didn't change it because people were complaining about it. It wasn't like everybody hated the old stat system. So kind of the example that I use for this in my head is Diablo 2 versus Diablo 3. In that Diablo 2 was one of the top rated games of all time, and so it had the working established formula there. And then for Diablo 3, they didn't stay true to that. They tried a bunch of new things that made a good game. There's nothing inherently wrong with Diablo 3. It is a good game, but it's not Diablo 2. It's not the sequel that most people that played Diablo 2 wanted. And, there was such a time gap between the two that a lot of people had never played Diablo 2. And so, just diving into Diablo 3, it was a good game. I'm not saying it wasn't, but, the fans would have more preferred that it stick to the original formula. And so I've worried a lot. I stopped worrying about it now that I made the dive, but I worried about it a lot last year, that I was going to kind of ruin things, in attempting to make a better player stat system. But it was something I was really confident needed to be done because of the way that we have the infinite spawning, infinite levels. And that's kind of one of the philosophies that I've tried to always uphold for Solace Crafting. And there's actually, I've talked a little bit about Solace Kingdoms, which is something I work once in a while on my free time. There's like 2 other games that I would love to make under the name of Big Kitty Games, that I would like to make. And both of those still incorporate the infinite procedural aspect, because I just think that makes games so much more fun. And, we have not taken Solace Crafting to its full potential by any means down that road of programming. There's so much more that you can do with that. But in keeping true to that, in upholding that and further evolving that, updating the combat math in the way that I did really does improve a lot of different things that go along with that. Not just player health, but player damage. And when we get into monster skills and monster stats, I'm going to be doing monster stats today. And, it really was getting silly when you get up to level 250, which is something that not everybody's going to do. So, there's kind of this lingering argument that I didn't need to do the update, but there are people that get there. There's people that have gotten to beyond 1,000. And when you get up there, the numbers literally fall apart. Like, I'm using 32-bit integers, which they have limits, and people were breaking those limits. So this solves all of those problems, and it really makes things a lot easier to handle, in that you're not constantly scaling. My screensaver kicked in. I hope that didn't do anything. But you're not constantly scaling numbers up. Like World of Warcraft, it's got, I don't even know what they're at, level 90 now or something, and you're doing, 10.6 million damage, and you can't even fit those numbers on the screen, so they're now abbreviating things, and if you continue down that path, it just gets worse and worse. So I have deviated away from that, and I hope that my, what's the word I'm looking for? Inventiveness. I haven't spoken English in a long time. I apologize. Hasn't gone, let's say, out of bounds, because again, fun is number one. Really just trying to make the game more interesting is priority at all times. But, bringing in those new concepts is something that I've always really enjoyed too, because I think that there is still a lot of room for growth in the gaming world. We see new MMO RPGs coming out this year, and all the genres evolving, and new games coming out that no one ever thought about, that are silly and simple, and they make hundreds of millions of dollars because it's just a good idea. And, I think there's still just tons of untapped ideas still out there, and sort of testing those waters with some of these new things that we've been working on, I think are really important. So work on those things continues. So yeah, I thought I would read through my to-do list here just a little bit. Whether we go solo or whether we do get investing, the goal is a solid 1.0 release. And I talked about this in the last video, but it's not so much that the content, I would say, it's not that the features change. It's that the quality of the content changes with investment. Right now we've got very poor animation quality, just all around, and audio quality, just globally, is not good. It's very incomplete, and not robust. And so with investment, with funding, we'll be able to flesh those things out, improve optimization, graphics, special effects, animations, audio. We're not going to be looking to add all kinds of new things. We do want to add a lot of new recipes, and there's some, crafting things, changes, and combat changes, and some of these things. But we're not looking to add tons of new systems, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We're just trying to look at making everything that is much better. The interface, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, some of the things that I do want to get into. So a lot of on my to-do list here is actually just that, is optimization, improving that is. So adding more capabilities for hosts when we're talking about servers. And I did a little bit of that here just a couple months ago in adding admin passwords. So you can actually give admins access to console commands if they have the admin password. They can pass that through as a client. And I also want to make, like a whitelist that an admin can add moderators, and moderators can mute people or kick people or ban people, etc. Some things like that you need for proper community management. Improving the Steam page is a big one. I think it still says I'm 34 on there or something, and I'm not 34 anymore. And just some of those screenshots are really old and, just could be a lot higher quality. Our introduction video is terrible because it was made by me. Would definitely be good to spend, a couple $100 to have someone online make us a much better video. I can record a bunch of content and get someone to do that for me, because anything that I make is just not going to be of any level of quality that the game deserves, Story is a big one. I'm not sure that we'll be getting much into that if things end up going solo. I definitely want to at least add sort of like an introduction story, but it might not necessarily be like a story arc. But that's very likely if we do achieve funding. Combat animations and controls is an ongoing work in progress. It sounds like there's a cat outside. My cats are freaking out. We have indoor cats. Multilingual system revamp. I've been using, what's it called? If you've ever looked at it's Crowdin. And it is a pretty robust tool, but it's a bit unnecessary. It's got a subscription fee, and it's got some pretty severe limitations. But anyway, I do want to expand on the multilingual system. I guess expand is not really the right word. I want to finish and improve it so that it's really its own kind of standalone system. And we'll probably make a Git repository for people to suggest changes rather than having to create a Crowdin account and log in and do all of that. Because again, they have it's paid and it's limited, so I don't think that that's really what we're going to stick with in the long run. But I do have some good ideas on improving that. Performance, audio, and UI, of course, are big things, and those are all kind of on hold until we really figure out the funding situation, because there's only so much I can do down those areas on my own. But if it comes to that, it comes to that, and I will definitely do that. And then sort of the more content, and then full controller support. That's another big one. That's a must. And really the only thing that's being held back with that right now is the ability to navigate menus. I don't have anything like that programmed in yet. So Unity is certainly capable of that. It just needs to be set up. And it would take a week or more. But once that is working, and you're actually able to navigate moving items, equipping items, selecting loot and things like that with a controller, that then we can say we've got full controller support. And that's something that quite a few people have asked for. I'm sorry that is not yet quite in yet. The weather and environment system is kind of stuck in a weird spot that I didn't quite finish. It is procedural, but it needs fine tuning in that it's too procedural. It's pushing values down extremes that it really shouldn't, making weird clouds, making night too bright at times, different things like that. And then really the only big things left are procedural monsters, NPC towns, and the class skill trees. So today, after this, I'm going to be streaming the first step in monster stats, and that's going to be the first step along the procedural monsters, what do you want to call it, development branch, where, Diablo 2 is the perfect example, where you've got, say you've got a Yeti, say you've got a Harpy, and in certain biomes there's Harpies all over the place, but some of the Harpies are champions. And those champions can have, what do they call them? I guess they call them suffixes and prefixes, but they have a term for it too, that's escaping me right now. Traits, I believe it's called. So what is normally just a champion Harpy now becomes a tainted Harpy, or a diseased Harpy or something. And they gain abilities, they gain passive traits, they gain environmental damage, there's different things like that. And that just really feeds into my love of procedural content, in that it's better to have 25 types of monsters with 25 possible traits and 100 possible loot drops, and these sort of different dimensions of things that they can draw from, rather than trying to say you want to have 150 unique monsters. It's much more difficult to create 15 different kinds of goblin models and this and that. It's much easier and still a lot of fun to have a red goblin and a slightly bigger but blue goblin that does water magic, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's something that I've always really considered as necessary to make the game feel less, what's the word, same. As you progress through the levels, you run into a monster that you've never seen before, and it's of a type that you've seen before, but you've never run into that trait. And sometimes you find that those are much more difficult for the class that you're playing, or maybe not. Maybe that was an easy one. Some of the traits should affect the loot that they drop, things like that. So there's lots of different ways to go with that I'm excited to get into. And kind of in general, everything is related to combat. Not everything, but I want to update monster hit point bars. I haven't really locked down how I'm going to do it yet, but I want it to be visible so that you can tell when someone's normal, when someone's a champion, when someone is a hero. And then there's the final, which we don't actually have any yet, but would be the boss class. And in working on the stat systems today, like right now, monsters really only have damage and hit points. So when they become a champion, the system just ups their damage and their hit points. That's really all that's going on, and that's pretty boring, to be honest. So we're going to be having monsters that are able to parry a lot, which for some classes that's going to be a problem, more so than it is for other classes. Some monsters are going to be doing a lot of magic damage, which again, for some classes that's not going to be a big deal, but for other classes it is. So just adding a lot more variety into combat in general, and sort of that a number of quality of life improvements to better show off those traits. Probably showing monster names above the health bars as well, um, which might not be necessary. We could do an icon for um, champions and things like that. I was actually playing on a Vanguard private server here the other day, and they used a dot system, and so it was some mobs were 2 dots, some mobs were 3 dots, some mobs were 4. I think EverQuest 2 did something like that too. So, there's different ways to go about it. But another way would be to simply say champion rock elemental, So we'll play around with some of those and try to get things more understandable. And, I think one of them definitely is to have not only things that you hurt have their hit boxes come on, or their hit point bars come on, along with the name and information that we need. For example, traits, but to also have monsters that attack you have their hit bars come on. Because I do want to avoid when you're walking around in the woods, and it says cow, goat, chicken, that's distracting and kind of takes away from the scenery, I think, if you've got name tags all over the place. But when you're actually engaged with something, even if you haven't hit it yet, I think that is reason enough for those to turn on. So I definitely want to work a lot on improving combat. That's sort of where the skills and the math have been going, and sort of tying those all together to the point that we've got monsters that are blocking and parrying, and some are tanks and some are mages, and this and that. Imps are throwing fireballs. That's kind of what I'm right in the heat of right now. So anyway, I've been rambling for 27 minutes. I do that. I apologize. Let me know if I need to structure these more. I think I covered everything I wanted to say, more or less. But yeah, still lots going on. It's just crazy to me that we're still here, I guess, is one way to say that. It's not a bad thing. I don't make a lot of money, but, we're surviving. We're still here. And that really says a lot. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, everybody, for supporting Early Access, supporting us through Patreon, tipping us through, some people do it through Humble Bundle, some people do it through Streamlabs. It helps out a lot, makes a difference, and this is the year, one way or another. Funding could result in the game not releasing in 2022, which, some people get fussy about that, and I really don't. And I think I'm on the correct page, and most of my gamer friends would agree with me in that it's really not important when a game comes out. Sooner is better, of course, but what we really want is good games. That's it. If a company needs to take time to get their game polished, if they need another month or 6 months so that it's not broken, we would prefer that, and it's a bummer when you see HR departments or whatever, probably marketing departments and investors and things like that, pushing games to get released on schedule, and then they have a really rocky start because of that. Real gamers don't want that. And so if funding goes well and we've got, a number of people really working hard on improving the game and just, covering lots of new ground and stuff, we're going to stick to that rather than try to say, we got to release before Christmas for some arbitrary reason, so who knows? 9 months of that could result in just, the game is ready, let's go. or it could not. So I just want to make it clear that it's not smart to make promises like that, and it's not good to schedule things like that when it comes to game development, because you don't know what's going to happen. That's not how programming or game development works. So I'm not sure, but if we do follow the solo route, it's very likely that the 1.0 will be released within the year. I don't really even want to say like quarter 3, quarter 2, because again, I don't know. Those kinds of guesses have never worked for me. Never, never, never. So I don't even want to do that. But, again, the game just needs to be good to get a solid release. And that's what we're shooting for every day. So again, thank you for your support. Sorry this video is coming out so late. And sorry I haven't streamed in like 6 months. It's kind of a weird lifestyle, I guess. But I'll talk about that on the stream. So hope you're all doing well. And happy 2022. Looking forward to it.